Celiac disease, Hashimoto's, severe osteoporosis, a rare immune deficiency called CVID. For most people, that list is a medical white flag, a reason to slow down or just give up. But for Beverly Meyer, it was the start of a 50-year obsession with what's possible. Beverly Meyer is a respected elder in the ancestral diet Paleo community. As a functional health coach, she specializes in labs, upgrading diet and lifestyle, and adding individually selected professional supplements. Her guide to herpes relief is a cherished resource. She assists with sleep, hormones, anxiety, digestion, and elevated triglycerides. Long before the internet, before functional medicine was a buzzword, before you could Google your symptoms, Beverly was in the trenches of the 1970s alternative medicine world, acting as her own medical detective. Since 1989, she's been a certified clinical nutritionist helping people across the globe navigate the exact same medical treadmills that many of you living with CKD, MS, or POTS are on right now. She isn't here to offer toxic positivity. No, no, no. Her philosophy is simple: don't whine, research what's next, and never, ever give up. Today, we're driving into the evolution of the paleo diet, how to stop the snowball effect of chronic illness, and the grit it takes to stay persistent when your body feels like it's failing. You can find Beverly Meyer's research and resources on her website ondietandhealth.com. I'm Mr. Cool Beans, and this is the Chronic Brew Podcast. Let's get to work.
I didn't have the strength that I have now. That's when you really need people.
People who could understand.
It really did make a difference.
So finding that community, finding that tribe.
Or in that realm of chronic illness and stuff.
I barely go through it because I'd be so focused.
Never thought in a million years that would have to happen to me.
All those emotions are valid. Yeah. Every last one of them.
I was at a low point.
Just kind of removing the stigma.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Chronic Brew. And we're back. I'm joined today by the incredible Beverly Meyer. Beverly, I've been looking forward to this conversation for weeks now. Okay, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you for having me here.
You've been doing this since the 70s, all right, long before there was a wellness section in the grocery store. Let's go back to those early days, shall we?
Yes, I was a college student then in the 70s and became ill and had a virus that nobody was able to help me with. And I was at Duke University with the famous Duke University Medical Center. And, I did what you would do and go to the doctor, and nobody was any help. And an acquaintance said, why don't you go see this person? He's not a doctor. He's very unusual in how he works. He did what we now call autonomic response testing, or muscle testing for short. So that was the first time I experienced somebody doing muscle testing, and he was able to help me, and that was my eye-opening experience. That, my goodness, there are people out here in the world doing amazing things, and they may or may not be in a white coat in a in a lab. And that's what started my quest to find people of all types, full MDs or whatever they might be, but who actually knows something and is able to be specific to what I need. And that's where my quest for what we now call natural health or alternative health or complementary medicine or functional medicine or all of that, that's where my own quest as a patient began.
You did mention to me before in our preliminary meetings that you did have chronic conditions. What were those chronic conditions?
Well, celiac disease, so the inability to process that, but I didn't find that out until I was in my 40s, I guess. But malabsorption and problems that came from that. And then at a young age, they're in college contracting the herpes virus. I don't have any shame or guilt about it. It's just a virus. It's, it's right. Like, it's no different than contracting, the flu or something. You're sick, and how are you going to help that? And to this day, it's become a large part of my practice, and people I talk to all over the world, that they're not getting help. and it's actually pretty straightforward to address it. But discovering that and finding out, oh, well, why doesn't anybody tell me about this? And why didn't anybody tell me about that? And then I contracted Epstein-Barr virus, which is also a member of that big herpes virus family, just a different type of virus, and was very, very ill from that, hospitalized twice and so on. And it was an herbalist and a MD that together pulled me out of that. So that's that's getting those experiences. Fortunately, I was able to find help a little bit outside the box.
Let's go ahead and talk about the paleo blueprint for autoimmunity. For someone listening with MS or an autoimmune disorder, why is an ancestral grain-free approach often the first lever we should pull to dampen systemic inflammation?
Oh, great question. We've known for a long time, and by known I mean those of us practicing functional healthcare or alternative healthcare. We've known about what we call leaky gut syndrome or intestinal permeability. We've known about this for decades. And part one, what those of us in this field feel as a rule and in general is that when the lining of the intestine is damaged by what we eat and the chemicals and the stuff that we take and, ridiculous amounts of stress and whatever else that we do to ourselves, it's not good for us. It damages a very fragile lining of the intestine. And what happens is the intestine becomes permeable. It's like it develops little holes, like a colander, if you will.
Right.
And then undigested or food particles or fecal matter or chemicals, things can pass through the gut wall into your bloodstream and organs. And that's what we feel autoimmunity comes from, is your immune system doing its job, which is jumping on and attacking. Well, wait, what is this? What is this little undigested broccoli fragment doing in my bloodstream? It's not supposed to be here. Or a dye or a virus or a gum or whatever it is. It's like, this isn't supposed to be in my blood. And your immune system's doing its job. It's trying to attack it and take care of it. The old GAPS diet addressed this, but was formatted too complicated. But so I'm one of the people that helped format the paleo diet, 20 some years ago. And the basic principle there is, here's one of my mottos, is follow the biology. Mm-hmm. So whether you're working with a pet or, a tree, whatever, any living creature has the nutritional needs that it evolved to have. Okay, right. So a tree cannot tolerate 5 years of drought. It dies of thirst. So, right. Or it can't tolerate somebody spilling, gallons of pesticide all over the roots of the tree or whatever. So we're the same way. Is that when you follow the biology, it doesn't take long to figure out that humans historically were hunters and gatherers for a very long time, the Paleolithic period, which was hundreds of thousands of years, and that during the Paleolithic period, we became really good hunters, and we had fire and cooked food and language and tribal communities and furs to keep us warm, etc. And so we didn't graze and eat grass and leaves and fungus and tree bark or bamboo or whatever. We didn't eat the foods of the herbivores. They were our prey. We don't eat like them. We prey and hunt on them. Mm. So the antelope would eat the grass and the leaves, and we would eat the antelope. That's kind of how things work.
Right.
So there we are. When we eat grains are grass seeds. They are the seeds of grass. And so wheat, rice, corn, oats, barley, they're just basically grass seed. And we have no proper biology to digest and utilize these. They're very alien to us, and they're high in carbohydrates, which of course is a problem as well. So that's kind of the rule number one of paleo or primal or biological, whatever you want to call the version of the diet. We all agree on that. Is we're not antelopes. We don't eat grass and grass seed. We're hunters and gatherers, and that's how our biology is focused.
Right. And just for a follow-up question to that, for the folks who are listening that say, "Hey, what about fiber? How do we get fiber into our system?" How would you respond to the need of fiber?
Well, that's a good question. Then, of course, the vegetable matter that we eat does have fiber. The various weeds, if you will, the vegetables and things, and nuts and seeds have fiber, and there is fiber out there. But the focus on fiber is extremely new to humans and medicine and health and all of that. It was never remotely an issue 200,000 years ago that, oh gee, I better go dig up some fibrous roots and I need my fiber today. It just our our guts weren't damaged by antibiotics and food additives. We hadn't developed leaky gut, and we didn't. So a healthy body works. It doesn't need an obsession with fiber. Now, because I do follow the paleo diet with pastured animals, lots of proper correct fats, and that's a whole other topic, and a large amount of lightly cooked vegetables. So I don't believe in eating raw vegetables. So we get much more nutrition out of vegetables. And then I do eat sweet potatoes. First of all, they have a precursor to vitamin A, which is rare and kind of hard to get. And they also do have some fiber and some carb content. But of course, vegetables have carbs too, as do nuts and seeds.
I know that listeners with CKD, like myself, or even the ones who have POTS, we have to manage protein and electrolytes like very specifically. How do you reconcile the rule of paleo with the high stakes clinical requirements of those specific diagnoses?
All right. First of all, those with advanced kidney disease are a special category. They're it's like someone with whatever medical problem that is advanced somewhat. They're not in an early stage of something.
Right.
So I can't speak to those with advanced kidney disease. I'm not trained for that, and I wouldn't accept a client with advanced kidney disease. But and I do want to say a quick word about POTS, postural orthostatic tension syndrome. It basically means that your adrenals are fatigued, and one of the adrenals' many jobs is when you stand up, you should have a burst of cortisol to raise your blood pressure when you stand up.
Right.
Very fundamental. And those that have this complex diagnosis of postural orthostatic tension syndrome, it basically means your adrenals are fatigued. And so let's find out why. You're running 60 miles a week with a bad knees, and you have sleep apnea, and all you eat are beans and sodas, and whatever. Each person, how we've managed to affect our adrenals. And so that's a huge part of my practice, is the male and female hormones and the adrenal cortisol hormone. So POTS is I've had multiple POTS patients, and it's like same thing. It's like let's figure out why your adrenals are fatigued. Let's test them properly, which is not by blood but by saliva testing. It's the only way to properly test male female hormones and cortisol is saliva testing, which I do, but others do. And and then let's see, why did the adrenals get this way? Now, how are we going to rebuild and restore them? Having celery juice for a speck of sodium
There you
is
go
not
again.
going to do it. It's like, yes, we need to look at your entire diet and your lifestyle, and your history of drugs and surgery and traumas. You fell off of a roof and broke 12 vertebrae or something. Who knows? Every person is different.
Quite possible too.
And so I put POTS more into a category of adrenal fatigue, and that can include things like PTSD and and chronic anxiety, things that draw on the adrenals constantly to try to keep us in balance. So there are many reasons why the adrenals get tired. Remember when I said I was hospitalized twice with Epstein-Barr?
Right.
What I didn't say is that one of the aftermaths of that virus is it almost completely damaged my adrenal glands. So having severe Epstein-Barr, this is not the common Epstein-Barr, this is a severe version. It attacks the adrenals. So that's what's happening. That is what happened to my adrenals. And I was told I had almost no adrenal function and would be on steroids the rest of my life. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. And as I said, I worked with a medical doctor, but also an herbalist and other people. And I've never taken steroids, and my adrenals are much, they work fine now. So there's plenty that can be done to repair damaged adrenals. And then back to kidney disease. Can you eat paleo on a kidney disease person? Absolutely, yes, positively. Because part of the reason why someone's kidneys, and of course there's, tens of thousands of people this way, so obviously there's no one answer.
Right.
That part of the reason they got this way, a huge part of the reason they got this way, is through insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, excess carbohydrates, and the extra weight on that. All that means that people have overeaten carbs, and now the insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome has, among many areas that it's affecting in the body, it's affecting kidney health, and there are, of course, other reasons why kidneys could be in trouble, but age and infection, and there's many reasons. But advanced chronic kidney disease, that I can't speak to. But for everyone else, as I say, follow the biology. If you're human, you should eat a human diet. Fresh, good pastured meat and poultry and seafood, and the best vegetables you can find and afford, and high quality fats, and a little fruit, a few eggs, some nuts and seeds, and that's what we're supposed to eat, not bread and pizza and Coca-Cola and banana cake and a bag of Oreos and whatever all day for years. And it's going to do more than just damage your kidneys.
Right. I know a major fear of our community is progression. Whether you have CKD and you progress from stage 3 to stage 4 or stage 4 to stage 5, or if your, other chronic conditions start to, really go south. How can we use nutrition not just to manage symptoms, but to actually prevent the onset of new comorbidities?
Well, everything that I've been saying kind of leads to that, back to our example of a tree, if it doesn't have the water, it's not going to do well. And if it has, someone spilled pesticides all over the tree roots, it's not going to do well. So, we're no different than any other living creature, a mouse or a cricket or whatever. We
Right.
need to eat the food that we can utilize, that we can digest, that we can process, and not eat and drink the other stuff that's not right for us. So, it's what you put in is what you get out. When you eat the right foods and they're prepared the right way, like, for example, as I mentioned, having your vegetables and produce be not raw, but wilted or cooked or grilled or steamed or whatever they might be, they're much easier to digest, and they can give up to us the nutrients that they have, especially if they're freshly or organically grown. They're going to be much higher in nutrients as well.
Now, Beverly, you've seen every trend since 1989. What is one foundational nutritional truth that has never changed? And what is one modern fad we should just be cautious of?
Well, I have a lot. Needless to say, I have a lot of judgments and opinions about things that we do to ourselves because, when a client comes, I'm like, okay, look, we've got work to do. And, I need you to stick with me. We're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to do this. And if you just want quick tips, you're in the wrong place. Go back to my website. There's 200 articles there and 200 podcasts there. If you want quick tips for free, go back there and do your homework. But so that's the basis there, is that we as patients have to be more proactive about what's going on, who is qualified to assist us, who is making sense when they talk about, oh, I think this is the problem, who is completely missing the point, like with someone with kidney disease, have they given you over to a nutritionist? By the way, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm a clinical nutritionist. We're more naturopaths than we are dietitians. So, but with kidney disease, they don't, but they should immediately get you to a
renal dietitian?
A real dietitian, but someone who doesn't follow the model they were taught in school. It's like, no, somebody who actually knows, like what I'm talking about, this kind of real nutrition. And, the first thing they should ask is, I want you to take 20 minutes and write down what you can remember of what you ate and drank the last 3 days. And it's like, okay, you got a high carb beverage, you got a high carb cereal, you got a high carb pizza, you got high carb cookies, high carb desserts, 3 beers, and oh yeah, there's a nice slice of ham in there. Okay, well, we need to have a conversation about what you're eating, and if we don't do that, then we're not being good patients. We have to press our practitioners. What else might be contributing to this? What might be causing this? Where else might I do research on this topic? And the ones that say, well, time's up, just take this pill, then you're in the wrong place.
Right.
And you've got to do your own research. And I suggest, of course, I'm all over the place. I research all kinds of stuff because the next client may be completely different from any client I've ever worked with before. And so I do a lot of research for myself, my own health conditions, but also for clients and friends, that you find a couple of trusted sources, good websites, good practitioners who consistently seem to know what they're talking about. And that's where you get your leads on, oh, now that was interesting. Let me look more into that aspect of this, rather than just randomly looking for the next biohacking miracle tip that you just waste your money on. And, recovering your health means prioritizing what's going on with you. And here's an example. Say you like to go buy antiques. You like to go antiquing.
I like a good Art Deco,
Yeah, and you find this really pretty table and chair, and you think, wow, those are beautiful, and they're really well made, and they've got this nasty paint on them, and they're ugly on the outside, but I think they're really nice looking. So you take them home. Is the first thing you do just slap a new coat of paint on there?
No, you sand it down. I would assume.
You've got to figure out, this has got, the glue is loose here, and and it's got, wow, 4 layers of paint and stain on here. And you've got to prioritize what you're doing to move you towards the end solution you're trying to achieve. You can't just go, well, I mean, unless you want to, just put purple paint on it, that's fine.
Purple.
But if you want, but if you want to restore it to the cherry wood or whatever, then, the healthy state of that chair, then you have to prioritize the materials and the time and the order in which you do things. And to me, that's what real health is about, is no, we're not starting with supplements. No, we're not starting with this. No, we're not starting with that. We're starting with, what are you eating for breakfast?
Yeah, the basics.
Let's get very fundamental here. And are you sleeping? Do you have undiagnosed sleep apnea? I'm big on that, and it's incredibly life-changing to flunk a sleep study. Your whole life changes the instant you look at that report. Trust me, because this is what happened to me just 4 months ago. And so it's like, wow, okay, I have a new number one priority is to handle sleep apnea and have actual air in my body while I sleep, instead of my blood oxygen levels plummeting into dangerous zones over and over and over all night long. How can anybody get healthy like that when they don't have any oxygen?
All that you said also goes directly with your philosophy, which is don't whine, research what's next.
Yeah, let me add something. There's a wonderful thing called consumer labs, and all but I think 5 states have consumer labs where people can go and order and pay for and run their own blood work or urinalysis or whatever you want to run. You can go and order it and pay for it yourself, and outside of the medical system. And, maybe you've asked your doctor 4 times, I want to test my vitamin D. What is my vitamin D? And they won't authorize it. Well, go pay for it yourself and run it. And the best company that I have found for that, I'm not affiliated with them at all, but it's where I send my patients to, is Life Extension, lifeextension.com. They've got their prices are much more fair, and they use Quest Labs like anybody else.
Quest Labs, yeah.
You're just not overpaying, $150 for a $60 test. And so that's part of taking care of yourself is, well, gee, what is my vitamin D? And have I run a comprehensive metabolic panel that every doctor is supposed to run annually, but they don't? I
get mines every 3 months.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you do now, but are they testing you for insulin resistance and other factors and ordering a sleep apnea test? They're not doing this. You have to figure that out and ask your doctor directly, or go and do it yourself. So, and back when I was saying find trusted sources and go with them, obviously I consider myself a good source for people to research. But if you find a practitioner of healthcare that's not part of the traditional system, like they're not just the guy on the 4th floor at the Mayo Clinic or whatever. So, but somebody who seems to be a professional that has a big, attractive website with hundreds of articles and podcasts and, great information and graphics, this person may know what they're talking about. So they might not, but, they wouldn't stick around for a 200-page website if they didn't have something going for them.
That's true.
So find qualified people and stay away from the quick tips miracle cure people.
Going a little bit deeper, we know that healing isn't linear. It never has been. It always has its ups and downs. How do you coach people to stay the course when they're doing everything right, but the results aren't immediate?
Well, good question. And I will answer that different than probably anybody else you talk to, because as you can tell from the way I speak, I'm a kind of a hard driver. I tell people, all right, look, here's what we're going to do, and this is what you need to do now. And so I'm not one of these, well, it would be really nice if you cut back your coffee from 12 cups a day to 6. That's not me, okay? So, this is why I'm so, I was going to say intense, but I guess that is right. But why I'm so straight with people when we first start working, we are going to change your diet and lifestyle. It's important that we as a patient have an experience of, oh, such and such feels better this week. I wonder why. And then you think, oh, that's right. I stopped eating wheat and corn and drinking, sodas. Gee, I wonder if that has something to do with why my pain is down or whatever. So the faster you can make correct big changes, the faster you can have an awareness, and journaling is really good. You can have an awareness of, that's interesting. I haven't had a headache in 2 weeks. I'd forgotten all about that. Well, great. So let's take a look. And I tell people, all right, this herpes virus or this headache or the muscle cramp or whatever, it's gone away. But if you want it back, just go back to eating the way you were.
That's true. Repeat the cycle. You'll get it again.
You can have it again. So there you go. And, so yeah, we've got to do enough to make a difference. And then, yes, there are going to be cycles, but usually those involve some form of a stressor. A stressor. Somebody's passed away, you have to move, you broke up with your girlfriend, you have a sick kid, you got fired, some idiot in a truck pushed you off the side of the freeway.
Oh, those idiots.
I speak from personal experience of that. When we get stressed, the equilibrium that we have worked so hard to bring about is challenged. And the body does not make mistakes. It's doing a terrific job 24/7 for you. But it's dealing with the cards you're dealing. It's playing with the cards you're dealing it. And sure, you can have a genetic anomaly or something, but for most of us, the reason we ended up in some certain situation is that we're not taking care of ourselves, and our parents didn't take care of us very well either. So, but when something temporarily falls back, look and see what's the stressor happening here, and how can what's herbs and supplements or changes in address, or what do I need to do to recover my equilibrium and let the body get back to managing your hormone problem or whatever it is.
When it comes to even with chronic illness, one thing that we echo a lot is how our bodies seem to have developed a mind of its own. It's like, well, what worked for me before is no longer working the same way. And it's and again, you hit it on the head. Your body is always your ally, working as best as it can to try to do what it's supposed to every single time. But there's something happening right now that's causing it to not function the way that it should. And so for me, I just think of it as we always still have to remember this is the same body that we have. Although it's not functioning the way that we want it to, it's still doing the best that it can to keep us going and alive. Now, Beverly, you've given us so much technical wisdom today, from the nuances of the paleo diet to the reality of managing CKD and other conditions. But I want to close on the human element. If you could leave a listener who is in the thick of their hardest day with just one anchoring thought to help them, keep going, what would it be?
Well, yeah, it's just what you said, to keep going. But for myself, I tend to have a lot of back injuries and so on and so on. And I just have to remind myself during the day before I can get to a chiropractor and say, you're okay. You're okay. You're going to get this handled. You've handled it before. Just, sit down and be quiet. And, so you have to take a firm grip on your mind, because the mind will go off into crazy land and catastrophize things, making catastrophes of things. And this is the root cause of anxiety, is that we catastrophize things. And okay, yeah, maybe you're in the hospital or you lost your job or both, and whatever, you think, well, of course it's a catastrophe. I'm like, but there's nothing you can do about that in the next 15 seconds. So you can break your life down into tiny little chunks of, okay, I'm okay right now. I have a broken leg. I'm not happy about it, but I'm okay now, and there's nothing I can do. And then 5 seconds later, okay, I have a broken leg, but there's nothing I can do about it right now. I'm okay. And then it's like, I'm not okay, call the doctor. But, it's Eckhart Tolle in his works, like The Power of Now, is extremely useful in coaching people in learning or accepting or being in a state of what is happening right now, this second. Your house may be on fire. Well, okay, do you want to scream and run around in a circle? Or do you want to use your rational mind and say, oh, my house is on fire. What are 3 things I need to get right now? Grandpa, my glasses, and the car keys, whatever it is. And, we have to manage our mind and learn how to keep it focused on prioritizing the next step of anything.
It's a reminder that while we can't always control the diagnosis, we can always control the next step in our research. I know my listeners, especially those in the thick of managing things like MS, POTS, and CKD, right? I know we're going to want to follow your work, listen to your podcast, and check out your clinical resources. So where is the best place for them to find you and see what you're researching next?
The website is ondietandhealth.com. And my podcast is Primal Diet, Modern Health. And so, for example, people that have been told they have this disorder of postural orthostatic extension syndrome, just get on the website and look up 4 or 5, 6 articles or podcasts I have about adrenals and adrenal fatigue and how to test and adrenals, and some of the other points that I made here. That's one quote unquote disorder that I get a little frustrated with, that it's not what it sounds like. It's something that is controllable and is testable and is solvable with basic things like sleep and proper salt, for example. A good place to start. So, but yes, thank you very much for having me.
We will have all those links, including Beverly's podcast and social media, in the show notes for today's episode, so you can find them with just one click. To everyone listening, if today's conversation gave you even one new tool or a much needed spark of persistence, please share this episode with one person in your life who is fighting their own health battle. One word of mouth is how we grow this community of medical detectives, okay? Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next page for our next deep dive. Remember to stay curious, stay persistent, and keep researching what's next. I'm Mr. Cool Beans, and this has been another serving of the Chronic Brew. Grace and repeat until next time. Peace.